Mark Rossiter, thank you very much for joining us today.
Better late than never, I suppose. A couple of weeks waiting, but no, happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Are you another victim to the late night Masters action last night?
I was, I was watching it. Like, I think it was the 15th hole when, Matsuyama went like very big and goes into the water, and I'm there thinking Xander Schauffele is going to, you're there thinking that he's going to finally, after all his majors, that he's going to get one, I suppose, albeit, a bit of bad misfortune for Matsuyama. But then he, on the 16th, it was big mistake and ultimately cost him a triple bogey. So, yeah, look, it was a brilliant tournament. It's I was in a couple of sweeps and I struggled in every one of them.
Me and you both.
Stop.
I hope you were watching plenty of football over the weekend as well, not just.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, no, the games. The Watch League of Ireland is unreal for games. Yeah. That you can have a little flick and switch between them all. But look, when it came to the weekend, you were just looking at the Battle of the Rovers, let's say. So. First half, I thought Sligo were the better team, albeit that they didn't create many chances. Neither did Shamrock Rovers, but they passed the ball really well. Second half, look, a bit of luck with the goal, let's say, but you've got Shamrock Rovers, who are the dominant team in the league, and look at the strongest squad in the league, and you're looking at they're going to create chances. They get the goal, say. It's, I suppose, you're at your most vulnerable when you've just scored. So look at it, it's a game that Sligo can take huge positives out of. Absolutely. You've played the best team in the country and gave a great account of yourself. I think, look, I just echo what Alan Cawley said when he was doing it, that a draw was a fair result on the night. But when you get that goal so late, you're hoping to hang on. But it just wasn't to be.
Yeah, I think Sligo Rovers can take a lot of pride if you throw it back to the semi-final against Shams last year up in Tala. The difference in even tempo and quality compared to Saturday evening was evident for everyone to see, Mark.
Absolutely. Like he's brought in really well. He's brought in Greg Bulger, who is the fittest I've ever seen him. I played with him a long time ago at Pats. So he's brought in a player who knows how Bucko wants to play straight away. So it's a seamless transition for him, and he's automatically made the squad a better team. And he's come from the champions. He's won multiple leagues. He's a winner. He really, really is. He's narky, but he just demands, and that's what you want. Like you want players to demand off each other, and no, he's an outrage. I think he's been the signing of the season, to be honest. Even when you look through it all with Chris McCann and all that, I think the impact that Greg can make at Sligo is bigger than any other player can make in any other team.
Yeah, high praise indeed. Another player has come in for high praise certainly in the last couple of weeks and over his career. Had a bit of a mishap at the weekend was Alan Manis. Who would want to be a goalkeeper, Mark?
Look at it's I done a podcast earlier in the week and Brian Murphy was on it, and it's a thankless position. If they come for a cross and they drop it, like you see Bradley's interview after the game, he's there saying last week his saves that he's after winning them points. The win points the whole time. It's just, I suppose, the best keepers in the league make the fewest mistakes literally over the course of a season. Manis, I've never seen him do that. He's an unbelievable keeper. He's the best keeper in the league.
Yeah, he's top class. You mentioned Stephen Bradley's interview after the game, causing quite a stir on social media. Definitely down our neck of the woods, Mark. A couple of quotes, but they had enough chances to win 2 games. They were in full control. Should have had 2 or 3 more. What was your opinion on the interview from Stephen after the game?
I can understand where he's coming from, but I wouldn't agree completely. Like when they got the goal, they're chasing. Like you're looking at when you bring on Sean Gannon, let's say, who I don't even know how many winners' medals he has, but he's left Dundalk. He's been winning for years and years and years, and that's the quality of player that you're bringing on. You know, you take off Dylan Watts and Ronan Finn, and you're bringing on Rory Gaffney, who I believe if he can get a run of games, he'll be the best striker in the league. Because he has everything, but you've got Gaffney there and Sean Gannon coming on, so that like the quality of player is so. And Sligo pressed so hard that they're going to tire. So teams like Shamrock Rovers will open you up. But like you look at Gibson's tackle right at the very end, like where the cross comes into the back stick, I think it was Aaron Green was coming onto it, and he just got the slightest of touches on it to put him off, done enough. So like they're fighting, and that's what you want to see. You want to see your team, you know, giving 100% every week. And look, at some days you'll get results, some days you won't. Some days it'll be free flowing football. Then you'll have games like Longford where it was an awful game, but you still won the game. And they're the games that you want to win, you know. So it was a tough night at the office against Longford, but Buckley came up with the header and the 1-1-0 and limited Longford to really no chances. So no, it's hugely positive for Sligo this year.
Yeah, and we look ahead to the fixtures maybe later on in the programme with Finn Harps, a big game to come next week. A massive win for Tim Clancy's Drogheda at the weekend against Longford, 4-0, Mark.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind. I was talking to Stephen Maher last night, who's the strength and conditioning coach, and he just goes, like he said, the level of detail that they went into in that particular game, that the players knew everything that they had to do. When you see the goals, I think the keeper's at fault for 3 of them. To be honest, I thought it was very poor. Apart from, I'd say, the third goal, which is I think it was Dane Massey who crossed it in. Great ball in, great header. Keeper couldn't do anything. But the other 3, he was atrocious, is what I'd say. And on paper, it looks like Longford are struggling. Albeit they had an amazing comeback against Bowles when they were 2-0 down, and you know then they throw in a home performance like that is completely unacceptable against a team that you look at, you should be beat, or they'll need to beat to stay in the league.
Yeah, I spoke to Alan Keane and Gary Rogers over the last couple of weeks, and I think the message that kind of came across with Tim Clancy is he's doing great work down at Drogheda, and he's brought in a nice mix of players, be it a blend of experience and maybe a couple of players with a point to prove. Always good to have in the squad, Mark. Absolutely,
and like going back to my own playing days, like when Stephen Kenny assembled his squad, let's say when they stayed up in a playoff, he assembled a squad of players that all, for whatever reason, that were all at Dundalk, that weren't seen as championship contenders in any shape or form. There were a group of, I'm not going to use the word misfits, but players that were thrown together that have a point to prove. And look, sometimes it'll go well for you, sometimes it won't. But you know, Timmy works hard. He was liked down in Sligo. He's a great fella. I wish him all the best. I really, really do.
Moving on up to Ballybuffet, the Finn Harps bandwagon rolls on for another week, Mark.
Yeah, look, it's you know, I spoke to Ollie Horgan once about signing for Harps. I had jacked it in my head. I had no interest in playing anymore. And do you know what it is? He just gets you enthusiastic about anything. I'd say he's brilliant to play for. I love him. I love his interviews. I love his honesty. He's fabulous for the league, and I think he's brilliant for Finn Harps. And you know, 10 points out of 12, you know, when everybody will have been tipping them to be fighting relegation again, like the job he done last year to keep them in the league, the points they picked up in the last 5 games was unbelievable. So, you know, like you're looking at players like Barry McNamee, Shane McElhenney, who've you know, played all over the league and played in very, very good teams. You know, he has quality there. He really, really does. So maybe it's just a case of that he needed to get a good start to the season. But you'd be looking at, on, you know, in any of the games you've seen them play against the likes of Dundalk and stuff like that, they're a game for anybody. They really, really are. So next week will be fiery. They really, really will.
Yeah, we look forward to it. I think the impressive thing with Finn Harps this year is that we've kind of become accustomed to them winning games fairly scrappy and maybe playing very deep. They played some decent football this season, Mark. What is a realistic finish? I know we're only 4 weeks into the league. There's no one getting ahead. And if you talk to Ollie Horgan, he'll say staying in the division is still the priority. What's a realistic finish for Finn Harps this season?
Like if they could get mid-table, they've got a really, really strong squad. But like Sligo, you'd be hoping that key players like the likes of John Mahon, if you can keep a strong spine of your team, so the likes of John Mahon, Greg and Morahan in the middle, like young Johnny is up top and he's leading the line really well, albeit Sean Hoare done really, really well against them the other night. But keeping Romeo fit, if you can keep, say, your spine in effect, then I'd be there looking at that. They should be top 6 Harps by their start. But like the league is mental. Like you could nearly, I suppose, turn the league table upside down, and that's the way it could finish. Well, maybe not with Dundalk, but they'll be up the top end at some stage. But it's an amazing start for the Northwest. It really, really is.
We spoke about the improvement in Sligo Rovers this year. More action from the weekend involved St. Pat's. Good 2-0 win over Derry, and Stevie O'Donnell definitely seems to have added a bit of steel to that squad, Mark.
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of Coughlin. I've done commentary on a good lot of the Sligo games in Dublin, and he's a huge talent. He really, really is. Technically excellent. He's just missing goals, or missing that, I suppose, clinical finishing, let's say. But in going into that squad, signing John Mountney, Mountney is, after 10 successful years in the latter part with Dundalk, him, Robbie Benson coming from that, who would have played a Stevie, knows his demands, and Stevie doesn't, he doesn't accept anything less than quality all the time in everything you do. He's taken that straight from playing into management, and he'll have got out some players that he didn't want last year and brought in what he did, and no, they look really, really good. And again, they're pressing really high, so similar to the way Liam's team are, press, and then their fitness levels may flag, but against Derry, going down to 10 men after 30 minutes, it's they move the ball really well. So I like the way that they didn't panic trying to score. They just moved them and worked them, and then they got their openings, and it's comfortable too now.
What does it do to a team when you add a host of winners to a dressing room like Stevie O'Donnell does? Does it just raise the game that 10-15% more that was needed?
Yeah, absolutely. And like if you have players like Dundalk wanted to keep Robbie Benson and he left to go to Pats with Stevie, that's a huge statement in itself. A fella who's playing week in, week out for Dundalk in midfield, and he leaves there to go to Pats. He has a huge connection with Stevie. And in Stevie bringing Mountney in, he's still only 28. You do forget about this, 28 going on 29. It does, because the players run the dressing room. Like managers will put stipulations in and stuff like that. But if you have winners there, if you're not buying into that, you get left behind, plain and simple. Like Stevie O'Donnell done it in that dressing room with Dundalk. And look where it took them. So you're trying to embed a winning mentality in the squad, and then you go out to games. Like games will just look after themselves. Like they really, really will.
The flip side, the team they bet Derry City, Mark, it hasn't been a great start at all up there, and there is pressure starting to mount up there.
Absolutely. Like I was there flicking onto the game there, and you're hearing that you don't think that the 4G pitch will suit Derry. I haven't been up to the Brandywell, I suppose since it's changed, let's say, but I don't know. It's a bad start, and I suppose the only good thing for the players is that the fans aren't in it from there, because the Derry fans are unforgiving. They really, really are, and it's a horrible place to go. Well, over the years, it used to be a horrible place to go and play. So, they need to get their finger out a little bit, because you don't want. Like, Dundalk have had a horrendous start, but they're going to win games, so that you don't need teams pulling out of that, and you being left chasing gaps this early in the season.
Yeah, it's certainly worrying times up at the Brandywell. The final fixture, I suppose, from the weekend involves your two former clubs, two successful stints you had there as well, Mark. Dundalk and Bohs. We'll concentrate on the positive first, I suppose. The first league win for Bohemians this season.
Yeah, and instrumental to that was Keith Buckley and Keith Ward. I thought Keith Ward was brilliant. The young lad who plays wide right, his name is just after going out of my head. He looks a brilliant talent. The little 20-year-old, little blondie fella.
Yeah.
So
the second
like,
game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But you're looking at, Bohs finishing second last year. Teams are sitting off them. Where Bohs are far better in counter-attack. So Dundalk pressed them. And like with Dundalk, it was like as if Pat Hoban and Michael Duffy were stretched up top, say, chasing. Their midfield was so exposed because the defence had dropped so deep. So there's huge gaps. And from a tactical point of view, Bohs kept their lines really, really well. So when they won possession, they had lots of players around the ball everywhere. So as a cohesive unit that particular night, Bohs were unbelievable. They really, really were.
Rossi, when do you think the time will come for Dundalk? Maybe it's come already. I heard a bizarre rumour over the weekend about Jurgen Klinsmann being linked and stuff like that. But when does the time come that Dundalk start looking at this situation and maybe thinking that the people that are there aren't the people to do the job?
I don't know. Like it's mad. Like the whole thing is mad. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I that you hear Giovanni Vignoli is the manager, but he's not the manager. But yet he's doing nothing but just sitting on the bench. Shane Keegan is there. I thought to myself that when they appointed Jim Magilton as the director of football, that I don't think he's going to stand around and wait in general. Like speaking to any of the boys, that when he was the number 2 at Shamrock Rovers, he's ruthless. So I don't think it'll go on for too long. Like you could be looking at, if they get a bad result at the weekend, it wouldn't surprise me if they pull the trigger there and then, a new manager comes in with his own coaching team and has the badges that are needed. It actually wouldn't surprise me if they turned around and Jim Magilton took the job himself.
Yeah, I think everyone is wondering that.
It's a very weird one, even though he said, I think it was when he left QPR, he'd never go back into management again. So you wouldn't know. It'd be very hard for you to pass up on that opportunity, knowing that they have got the best budget in the league, really. So you've got endless money. I don't understand why you're signing players from all around Europe. That makes no sense to me. Like they're signing a centre back from the Faroe Islands. They're signing a Latvian fullback, although I think he's the best signing that they've made. I don't know. It's mental. It really, really is.
Would they argue that they're bringing those players in to try and progress in the European competition, Mark? But again, if you don't finish in the top places in the league, you don't make Europe.
Absolutely. And regardless of what you say, is your bread and butter is you win the league every year. And that's what it is. So don't be looking beyond that, because you've got a huge financial outlay and you're not getting anything back. So they're going to need to finish in the top 3 to guarantee Europe, unless they win the cup. So they need to get the finger out. They really, really do. Like you run the risk of losing people like Chris Shields and stuff like that, whose contract will be up at the end of the season. Their defense hasn't been great, and then you've lost Gartland for the season. When he started his first game. So it's I don't know, it's a very weird one to look at. It's not good to see, because in fairness, they set the bar for years in what they were doing under Stephen Kenny and stuff like that. But it's sad to see the way it has gone so far. So I'm hopeful that it'll change for them. Yeah,
and it wouldn't surprise you at the same time if a change was to happen at Dundalk. You wouldn't be surprised to see him go on a run of maybe 10 on the bounce or something, given the talent they had. And I suppose the question I'm wondering, Mark, is, and you've been in successful dressing rooms, so you know better than me. Like, I'm not for 1 second suggesting Dundalk players will be unprofessional or anything like that, but does it then allow the players maybe a chance to drop their standards when there's so much going on in the background? It kind of takes the emphasis away from playing, if you get me. Do they have an excuse?
it gives the players excuse, but it's not an excuse.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, regardless of what troubles are on in your personal life, anything like that, you go out and play a match with freedom. Anything that's, it should be freedom for 90 minutes, literally. So look at it. If there's a circus going on in the background, then it is what it is, but that's not something that should affect the way that the players, albeit if it's a different story and years previous where clubs are in financial struggles and you're not getting paid and stuff like this, that's different. But that's not the case at Dundalk. It's they're literally just, it's chaos in the background, but that shouldn't stop the players from going out and doing their stuff. So is it a thing that tactically, that's a different story? I don't know. I refuse to ask the players anything, any of the boys that I keep in touch with. So, it's just not working at the minute. It really, really isn't.
Yeah, and losing an experienced head like Brian Gartland obviously won't help, but we wish him the best of luck with his recovery because he's a smashing player. He's been a great servant. Just before we move on to maybe next week's fixtures, Mark, what players, I know we're only 4 weeks in, but what players have stood out to you in the league so far as the standout ones?
Standout players. Mandrew looks like he's gone to a different level, albeit he didn't really do much the other night, but he seems to be getting back to the form that got him on the scale, with Bowes initially. I think he's really done. I think Chris McCann is an unbelievable signing, midfielder. I played against him when he was 17 or 18 for Burnley, and he's a fabulous player. Sits in really well, and for them losing Aaron McAniff and Jack Byrne, bringing in Andrew McCann, it seems to be seamless. To be honest, I'm very surprised at the form of Colm Horgan for Sligo. I think He's been reinvented. He's been brilliant. Him and Gibson seem to have a really good partnership there. Gibson obviously has done really well for Sligo. I think, having watched Sligo a lot last year, I don't think Junior hit the highs that he should have or was expected of him. So when he left and I heard Romeo was back, I'm not saying that I was happy that happened, because I think Junior's happier probably to be in Dundalk, but I think Romeo was a fan's favourite and he's come back and done really, really well as well. So yeah, it's I think probably Colm Horgan has been the surprise for me. And look, I'm a huge fan of Greg Bulger anyway, so I'm delighted to see him playing. And look, at long may he stay injury free as well. So he's had a bad old one last year. So I'd be hopeful that he can stay fit and well.
Yeah, I think with Greg, I think in 90 minutes, if you were to sum up the reason he was signed by Sligo Rovers, it was there for everyone to see on Saturday. You could hear him. I thought he was immense. The stuff he was doing off the ball, he's dragging players with him. Thought he was brilliant. I think in terms of Mandrew, Mark, what impressed me was, I think going into the game, you kind of thought, well, hopefully if Greg can give him a couple of kicks and you can kind of knock him off his game, that he'll go missing. I think what impressed me was he fairly grafted, probably a thing the Bohemians fans would say he didn't do enough of. He didn't drift out of the game. He dropped in, he wanted it. He didn't kind of shrug the shoulders. And I have to say, I was impressed with him.
Yeah, but you've gone from, I'm not, no disrespect to Bowes, but it's like if some of their players or young lads have a great season, Danny Grant, English team, comes in and takes him. Shamrock Rovers are in the position now where players are signing 2-3 year contracts. So Mandrew has gone in, and the likes of Bradley, Glenn Cronin, they'll openly turn around. I know Jack Byrne has made no bones about the fact is that if you don't perform, you'll be gone. Plain and simple. So Mandrew is, on the cusp of, you could be the talisman for Shamrock Rovers this year, or you could be, say, gone out of the League of Ireland. It's that simple, He's only a young lad. He's still part of the 21s. He's a huge talent. He's an exceptional footballer, both feet. So you'd want him to progress, to go back across the water and fly the flag from an Irish point of view, So you don't want it to be that it's another case of, what a talent he could have been. Because look, if there's any amount of them stories, and we don't want to add him to the list,
Well, it's all to play for, so we might get a couple of predictions off you for next week's games. As I said to Gary Rogers and to Keno the last couple of weeks, they're impossible to call. the league is just so open. Starting off, Waterford at home to Bohsmark.
Bowes.
Oh.
Do you want to score? Do you?
You can give me one if you want.
2-1.
2-1. Derry Drogheda.
I'm gonna go for Drogheda 1-0.
That would really pile the pressure on Derry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Dundalk at home to Pats. Fascinating game.
Draw.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
1-1.
fair enough. Okay. Shams Longford.
Shamrock Rovers, and I'm gonna go Shamrock Rovers 4-0.
Okay, and the Northwest El Clasico, Sligo Rovers and Finn Harps.
I'll go for a Sligo win 1-0.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, and if Kenny's there, I'm going to go for his first goal as well.
Yeah, what have you thought of him so far, Mark?
Excellent. Excellent. I'd only have ever heard. Look, I went to support Sligo when Johnny Senior was playing, and loved his team with Willie McStay. But I had heard about Johnny Junior scoring 4 goals in a game. This, and I'm like, they're gone. And like, I'm excited to see, number one, does he have the pace of his dad? Does he have the same size? And I haven't seen him in reality, so he looks like a slight lad, but he's only 17. But first day when the big Pharaoh centre back for Dundalk, they had a little thing, and he gave away free. He went into the back of him, and Johnny's up wanting to go at him. Love to see that.
Yeah.
So I like fearlessness there, and I thought that was deadly to see. So he has a bit of fight in him. So I was like, yeah. He's definitely an exciting prospect. So I'd be hoping he can get his first goal. Like he was at Waterford, he hit the post with a header.
Yeah.
So I'd be hoping he could get a goal and see where it takes him from there. Yeah,
I think Saturday was probably an unfair game to judge him on. There was no chances for either team. So you wouldn't be judging him on that. Just before you go, Mark, I am interested to hear your thoughts on. It's not just the last couple of weeks we've heard talk about it. It feels like I'm hearing talk about this since birth, and I'm sure you're the same. The talk of the All-Ireland League, Mark. What do you think the pros and the cons are of it? And do you think it's actually ever going to happen? Or are we going to be sitting here in another 40 years talking about it?
I think if if the league is ever to develop into a professional league, that you need to make it an Irish league. Absolutely. Like, I've played in Setanta Cup. I was fortunate enough to win it. Like these teams are very, very good. When you played against when we played against Linfield up in Windsor, Jesus, it's tough place to play, but it's class. The sectarian thing is always going to be there. It doesn't seem to be as bad as it was years ago. So I'd love to see it. I really, really would. If you could do it in a way that you'd done away with part-time football, that was a full-time thing, that, there has to be financial structures in place to support a full-time league. Otherwise, if teams can't do it, then sorry to say you're gone. I'd like to see it, because you want to see a great Cork team. You want to see Galway. You want to see Sligo, Finn Harps, Derry. Not that it's just, say in my day where it was Bows against Rovers. There was a very good Pats team. You want to keep it out of, as well as having hugely competitive teams there. You want the regionals to be brilliant, because like Turner's Cross and the Showgrounds are 2 of the best stadiums to play in when they have successful teams. Because I can remember when Cork was under John Caulfield, and I was playing for Longford at the time, and they're challenging for the title. And I can remember standing on the pitch, and there was 6,700 people there, and there was vibrations going through the pitch, that like the place was rocking that much. I was like this, going, every player should want to play in this. And that's what you want. I can remember when my brother was playing for Galway United, when they played in the semi-final of the FAI Cup against Finn Harps, and there was thousands there at that as well. So these regional teams, they'll if you give them something to cheer, then they'll come in their thousands. And that's why I'd love fans to be back, because the team that Sligo have now, albeit if they lost, they'll try, so the fans will get behind them. You know, they really, really will. So, you know, I'd love to see an All-Ireland League. Do I see it happening in the near future? Huge question marks. But, you know, I think if the Irish League is going to progress, that's the outcome you need to be looking at, because, you know, they'll have teams that are financially, structurally secure up there, and there's a handful of them down here. But how many of them could go full time and support us would be a different question.
If you were to put the mortgage on it now, and I said we'd have an All-Ireland League by 2025, would you risk it?
No.
No.
No. No.
Yeah.
That's I'd love to say it by 2030, yes, but by 2025, you know, there's probably structures within the League of Ireland and the FAI that need to be ironed out a lot. You know, there's a lot of conversations that have to be had before anything concrete happens. Then you need to throw it out there that if it is like a plan going forward, is there going to be teams that are big teams that are going to turn around and say, no, we don't want it? You know, when they'd be, and, you know, just throw it out, say Linfield, Shamrock Rovers, they turn around and say, no. What bearing does that have on the decision then? You know, so I'd like to say yes, but, you know, true to form, I'd say it won't by 2025.
Well, Mark, it's been absolutely brilliant to talk to you. As I said to you earlier on, the last time I seen you, I was 17 when I played against you up in the showgrounds, and we were in awe that we were playing against the great Rossi. You were throwing shapes in the middle of the park I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, but I didn't have the ball at my feet when I was throwing shapes. So
Your Dykesy kept picking them off.
Stop. Dykesy be telling me to kick it into a corner and squeeze. They'll got great days, and even with Summerhill, like it was unbelievable. Great teams, like even Stevie Feeney when he was coaching them, and, you know, winning All Irelands and stuff like that. You know, amazing memories. Really, really was.
Yeah, you can't knock them. Mark, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much for coming
Pleasure.
on. We'll be hitting you up in the next few weeks to come back on again.
Anytime you need me.
Thanks very much, Rossi.
No worries. Take care.
Take care, mate.
EJmenswear.com. Shop Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Farah. EJmenswear.com. Shop Ralph Lauren, Ted Baker, Gaunt. EJmenswear.com. Shop Lyle Scott, G-Star, Superdry. Shop top brands. Shop Irish owned. Shop EJmenswear.com.